The Neo-Egoist League in the Blue Lock manga has finally come to an end. It took a while, but we finally know everyone's final salaries. And because of the salaries, throughout the whole arc, fans have been speculating who's gonna make the cut to be on the under-20 team. But that's not really important to what I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is who's going to be the new captain on the Japanese under-20 team. With Ego acting as Blue Lock's manager / coach, you might not think that they need a team captain, but I disagree. Through Ego's guidance at Blue Lock and NEL, the boys have been able to improve as players drastically. But he hasn't really been a leader to them. He's mostly just given them an environment where they can push themselves and figure out their own strengths and weaknesses. He takes a very hands-off approach to their development. I think a team captain would be more hands-on. Throughout this arc, I've seen what leadership looks like through the players and through the various coaches and the different styles of teaching. And this kind of made me want to share my picks for the Blue Lock players who I think would make sense to have as a captain of the under-20 team, and some who I don't think would do a good job. We're going to start off with the one you guys probably want to hear about the most, and that's Isagi. Starting with his pros, he's ranked number 1 in the NEL. That lets people know that he's a good player. Being a good player means that your team can rely on you. I think a lot of us can agree that it's infuriating to try and take advice or have to listen to someone at work or just at school who just insists they're smarter than you or know better than you, and they just don't. So if you're not a good player, it's hard to get the respect of your team. He doesn't have strong physicality, so he's made all of his plays in Blue Lock, using his mind and his meta vision. And even though it's all for the sake of scoring his own goals, he's at times understood that he couldn't score a goal by himself and has relied on his team. So I think if he led the team of Blue Lock, he'd have a good understanding of what kind of players they are and how to work together as a team. He's been somewhat of a pseudo leader depending on what plays we're talking about when he's been on Bastard Munchin, inspiring certain people to evolve or just even get fired up about the game. Isagi is also a talented learner, and we saw in the little description when we first heard about them that talented learners are the people who can communicate what geniuses believe to regular people. So I do think by nature a talented learner will be better at teaching people. Isagi is also well liked by his friends. Being a good player is important, but it's not the only thing involved with being a captain. What matters a big amount is how you're going to act with your team off the field. And it's a lot easier to have people believe and respect in you when they also like you as well. However, Isagi being nice kind of leads into my first con, and that's that he has a lack of presence off the field. I know I just said it's important that he's likable so people can work with him, but I feel like that's to a certain extent. When Isagi is on the field, he's a demon. He's rude, telling people he's gonna kill them, saying slurs. He's awesome. But when he's off the field, he's like a very normal and nice person. Being nice is great for the sake of making friends, but if you are a captain, you also need to respect the people you're with. It just doesn't make sense for people like Baro and Rin to care about what Isagi has to say. If you're trying to compete with Isagi, who's gonna try and structure the team around getting his own goals, why would you listen to that person? Friendly rivalry can be good, but knowing how these two are and some of the other players, they can just see Isagi as someone to surpass. And you can say that this makes them bad teammates, but at the same time, as a captain, it's your job to keep these people in line, and I'm not convinced Isagi can really do it. I would say the biggest reason why Isagi shouldn't be the captain of the under-20 team is because he's still learning about his soccer playstyle. In the last match, he had a very big understanding of who he was as a player, and I think he still needs to build on that. I don't think Isagi's in a space right now where it makes sense for him to take a lot of time to really look after his team. He still needs to focus on his own development a lot. And being a captain, you might have some responsibilities that I feel like Isagi's just not ready for just yet. I do think he can be a great captain eventually, but I think he needs more experience just playing soccer before he's at that stage. The next person I want to talk about is Rin. And for his pros, he's also the number 1 ranked player at Blue Lock, tied with Isagi. And Rin isn't a talented learner, he's a genius. I did say that talented learners are better teachers than geniuses, but the thing is, if he's going to be on the team with the best people in Blue Lock, it's just going to be filled with other geniuses and talented learners. So whatever he can't really teach, talented learners are just going to pick up by themselves. Also, he's very confident. Rin doesn't have a lot of insecurity. Even when they're down a goal in several games, he's very chill because he understands he can win. Rin also has some experience leading. For the under-20 game, when they were down a point, Rin actually was the person who kind of set things into gear. He believed and he kind of did lead his team to victory to some extent. They're mostly playing around him, but he still was the one who kind of kept their spirits high. People knew that because Rin was a good player and reliable, that they can just do what they have to do and then Rin will help them get the victory. So Rin does inspire confidence, which is an aspect of being a leader, even though he doesn't instruct people that much. There was a time though that he did instruct Nanase, increasing Nanase's options as a soccer player, so he is capable to work with other people and take notice of their skills and weaknesses. No one had ever told Nanase that he was probably ambidextrous with his legs before. Not Ego, not his former coaches. Rin was the only person who seemed to notice, and that's off of training with him for what, a few weeks, days? But now we can move into Rin's con. Even though I just said Rin helped Nanase, Nanase had to beg him for help. Rin did not want to do it because he has too much of a solo mindset. Rin is pretty standoffish. On the day when all the Blue Lock boys hang out, Rin had no interest in doing that at all. But due to his incredible skill, I do think that could make him a decent captain, but at the same time, Rin doesn't really want to be captain. Being captain is responsibility and looking after others, and I think Rin would just think the whole thing is a drag. like. Rin is also very childish and he does not handle defeat well. I haven't seen it become a crazy big issue right now, but I could literally see it becoming a bigger issue as time goes on. That one goal that Rin got where he decided not to shoot and pass it back and do it again, that was so unbelievably childish. And even Loki said he'd be banned for life if he tried that in a real game, which I don't think he would, but I think he would do something else childish that would just not work well with the team. I just thought he warranted talking about because he's also the best player in Blue Lock right now. Who I want to talk about next, I think, is the most logical choice for captain, and that is Aiku. Starting with his pros, on top of his metavision and having a high soccer IQ, Aiku is the only person on the team who has experience being a captain at this high a level. And we see that he is a good captain. When Shido got mad and wanted to attack Sendo, Oliver just tackled him and held him down. And one, that shows dominance because it shows that he's a tough guy. Oliver's a cool dude and he has a very chill demeanor, but at the same time, he gets serious when he needs to, and in that instance didn't just stop a fight from breaking out. He also didn't let Sai disrespect him and the rest of the team uncontested. Even when Sai wanted to have Shido play in the game, Aiku was able to get Sai to play the game that he wanted to. He wanted Sai to support their team and work within their team, even though Sai had his own plan. And someone as conceited as Sai, it's very interesting that he would listen to someone who plays soccer from a country he doesn't really respect. Aiku can manage people with big egos, which a lot of the Blue Lock players have. When they did the under 20 matches starting to lose, Sai was ready to leave, but Aiku was ready to already shift plans. He doesn't have a big ego like a lot of other people, and he's willing to adapt to change to win. He's a good player, he cares about the interest of his team, and he is willing to work with people because he has good social skills as well. He does try and keep the peace, and I think he does it pretty well. So generally, a really good choice for captain. But here is his cons. Aiku did not go through Blue Lock. Going through Blue Lock is very important because they get you in the right mentality to improve. Aiku is 19. He went through his entire adolescence being taught a certain way to play soccer. But in his defense, he seemed to already understand the way he was being taught soccer was wrong, which is probably why he's the only player from the original under 20 team who's a serious threat. Regardless of his rejection of the Japanese way of soccer, he wasn't able to keep his team up to his level. That could be a failure of his leadership or more likely the failure of their management and coaches over the years. And his other con actually ties into him being a defender. Because the Blue Lock team focuses a lot on attack and everyone had the heart to be a striker before, I could see maybe as a captain who's mainly a defender, he may not got the respect of other people, but I honestly don't think it'll be that big an issue. Because Aiku's removed from the whole offense and is focusing on defense, he's not really competing with the other defenders. All of our strikers are probably going to be competing with each other, and I can see that leading to some very major slip-ups very soon. But not Aiku, he's just in the back defending with the boys. So again, I have these as cons, but honestly, I'm stretching a little bit. They probably don't matter, which is why I said Oliver is the most logical choice to be captain of Blue Lock. My favorite choice for a captain though is someone who's very similar to Aiku, but he has gone through the Blue Lock program. Karasu. Starting off with Karasu's pros, he's a talented learner, he has a high soccer IQ, and even though he's very physical, no, that's not right. And even though his physicality is very high, the best part about him as a player is his mind. During the under 20 game, we see him at a few instances making shot calls, telling people our defense needs to be like this, our offense needs to be like this. There was even a point where he tried to talk to the referee about calling a foul on Shido because he kicked Ren in the face during a play. And I feel like that's an important thing to do as a captain. You rely on him to make sure the team is good. I think that's something we haven't seen much from players at Blue Lock. People will coordinate, but the way Karasu was trying to take control of the field and really manage everyone's resources and what should be done, that's something which we don't see a lot of. And I think that's why Carlos would be a very innocent choice to be captain, because he already has those qualities. He's the confident guy, and I think being the number 3 person at Blue Lock at some point means that people understand that he's a really strong player. But let's start with his cons. Karasu has the lowest rank of anybody on this list. He's only 1 rank below Aiku, but he's had a much harder time staying at a high rank throughout the league than anyone else here. And full disclosure, when I first recorded this, Aiku and Karasu actually had 9 full ranks between them, so I was genuinely worried that Karasu wouldn't be a starter for the team. And as a captain, you don't necessarily have to be a starter, but I do think if you are a starter and a captain, people will respect what you have to say a lot more. At one point, I thought they're going to announce that Karasu was going to become captain, but now I don't think they will because of the Bastards versus PXG game. Karasu was playing a defensive role in this game as well, but he didn't do much. And I don't mean that as a criticism to him, I mean that as a criticism to Kaneshiro, who wrote the manga. Guys, I like Isagi, I like the main characters, but a lot of that game was just the Isagi, Kaiser, and Rin show. It's crazy the amount of shots that those 3 have just blocked. I understand you're a striker and sometimes you can make good defensive plays, but at the same time, you have actual defenders in the game. Let them do the defense. And I think this is the last game we're seeing the NEL, so I think it made a lot of sense to let Karasu actually build himself up and have more impressive plays. I think almost everyone in the game had a strong performance, but when everyone is strong, you don't really get to stand out. And I feel like that's why it might be a bit harder for Karasu to be accepted as captain. But also from a narrative point of view, if they're not going to put any focus on him to build him up to be a captain, he's probably not going to be a captain. captain. The next pick I have is a bit strange, but I want to talk about Baro. Before this arc, I absolutely would not say it would make sense for him to be a captain. When the Bastard versus Uber games, he really did show that he does have some of that potential. Starting with his pros though, Baro is a very talented player. He has a very dominating presence. He also did lead the Ubers to a few victories. I know Scruffy was making the place for him to follow, and they showed that they played all around Baro, which I think is very impressive. Baro saw through Isagi's play and understood that what Snuffy was trying to tell him to do, it wouldn't have worked out.
Baro was capable of thinking of a play by himself and successfully forced his team to adapt to him. So it wasn't just Snuffy pulling Baro's strings and leading the team.
Even though Baro isn't particularly friendly or has any friends, he is confident on and off the field. You can lead a few different ways, and the way Baro leads isn't necessarily to inspire people to do better, it's to more get people to fall in line.
And as much of a dictator that Baro is, he's also demonstrated fairness before. When Baro, Isagi, and Nagi fought over who got to sleep in the single bed when they were all roommates, Baro just took it before the issue was settled. But he also cleaned and organized the room without being told. So Nagi and Isagi accepted that he took on more responsibilities as a roommate, so they don't have an issue with him getting his way. If he's able to continuously keep people in line like this, he'd be a solid captain. We also saw in the bath that Baro likes things to be done a certain way, so him being captain would still be true to himself, because he likes order, structure, and most importantly, he likes things done his way.
However, for his cons though, he is very childish. Baro has lost so many games just because he did not believe in teamwork. As dominating as his performance was when he faced Isagi in the first selection, Baro lost every other game after. And then in second selection, he lost that game. And then he lost another game. And it was so infuriating because Isagi's trying to talk to Baro about, Baro, we gotta work together with a team. But Baro just in his head is like, I score a lot of goals. All is good. I'm like, motherfucker, work with somebody, goddammit. The only scenario where I think it makes sense for Baro to be captain is if he is the best player on the team. If he's number one and people play around him, it's fine. But he's not the best, so people aren't going to play around him. And honestly, I'm not even sure if he's gonna be on the starting lineup because of how hard he has struggled to work with other people. The last player I want to talk about, some of you may have seen this coming. I don't know if I put him in the thumbnail a lot, but it's Itoshi Sai. Right now, he's confirmed as the best Japanese player in the world of Blue Lock. Not only does he have a high soccer IQ, he has the most experience of anyone who's going to be on the under 20 team at competing at a high level, because he does play for the best soccer club in the world. I think Sai's experience and super high soccer IQ, probably the best in all of Japan, is going to help him out, because some of these people are going to be facing the World Cup. Sai is probably faced again in his Real matches. Also, Sai, even though he's not very nice, he does understand people's spirits, because during the under 20 game, when the coach was thinking of swapping people out, Sai commented on how much spirit the team had and saying swap them out's not a good idea. So he does understand people. I just don't think he has much interest in really befriending them. However, for his cons, he didn't compete in the Neo Egoist League, but he's still a really good player, as we saw in the under 20 game. So I can see Sai coming back and then Ego make an exception for it, like how he did for Kunigami. Sai did also say though that he would never play for a Japanese team, but I think his opinion on that might have opened up after he acknowledged that Japan might make a world-class striker from seeing Isagi in the under 20 game. Another issue with him not playing with Japan is that he could play for Spain. I don't know what the laws are in Blue Lock, but Sai's been playing for Real in Spain since he's been 13. So that's been 5 years. So I can see him potentially having citizenship. And if he does have citizenship to play in Spain, then he could face them again in the World Cup. So Sai is rather going to play for Team Japan, or he hasn't showed up because he's going to be playing on Team Spain. Another problem with Sai is that he hasn't played with the Blue Lock players that much. The new Japanese under 20 team, it's mostly going to be players for Blue Lock who will spend more time with each other. Sai coming in after missing the NEL is probably going to be involved in what? Maybe a month of training camp, and then they're going to do the World Cup. He doesn't have that much experience playing with anyone except Rin, but Rin's style's probably changed a bit since they've been playing since they've been kids. I do think Sai also has bad social skills. Like, I don't think he's as standoffish as his brother,
but almost every person we see him interact with, he's been blunt and very rude to. Though he gets away with it because he's Itoshi Sai. His reputation as Japan's #1 player lets him act this way without major problems. Though he seems to understand that his reputation will only get him so far, and seems to be socially aware of people's feelings and his own position. And I think that his social awareness will help him manage people enough so they don't get too pissed off at him, and at the same time, people will learn to trust him more as they see what he does for their team as a player and as a captain.
I think the most logical thing for Sai to do is to come in as being part of the top 23 that are going to be in the World Cup. At first, when he comes back, he should just come back and observe, see how people in Blue Lock work as a team, see how they've improved,
and guide their playstyle to be even better. He'll basically start out as an assistant coach, helping with training and probably strategy. And quickly, he can increase his roles in the games and become a regular on their team for the World Cup.
I just don't think it makes sense for him to come right away because he still has to spend some time catching up, understanding how this team works. But when the time is right, put him on the field as a midfielder, and I think he'd be like a great leader. A lot of the Blue Lock boys may not like the idea that he skipped the entire NEL, is now coming on as our captain, but they know about Itoshi Sai. They know how great a player he is. Most of them had played against him or with him. So I truly think they would accept Sai as captain. But is Sai gonna come back? I really want him to, but honestly, I think he's going to go to Spain. Either way, I want him to compete in the Under-20 World Cup. He just has to. Looking back on the people I've brought up to be captain, I think the most logical choice would have to be Oliver, Karasu, and Sai. I think if any of these three become captain, it would make sense, but at the same time, Blue Lock hasn't really focused on a captain before, except for Rin for the Under-20 game, but that was just when they gave him the armband. I don't think he really was captain. So we might not get a captain at all, but if they do, it's gotta be one of these three. But honestly, I'm okay with them not having a captain as long as Sai plays for Team Japan, man. Come on, it would be so sick. If you still want to hear me talk more about Blue Lock, I actually made a video on it recently, so you can click it right here to watch. I'm Lee December, and you should subscribe because anime. Peace.